it's a good fit. Appreciate it.
Excellent. We're glad you're here. Thanks for joining. All right, we've got Justin. Hey, Justin.
Hey, I'm nursing a sick toddler right now, but yeah, I'm also a realtor. I mentee under Sarah and Suzanne as well. I have 2 investments currently and am looking to add to that and just learn as much as possible.
Excellent. Thank you for joining us. We've got KT. Welcome.
Hi, this is Kensu from Northern California. Currently, I have a couple long-term rentals, and the topic of auction sounds very interesting. So, it's excited to learn something new. Thank you.
Glad you're here. All right, I'm going to assume this is Pedro. Thanks for joining us. I'm glad you got the link this morning.
Hey, yeah, I had a little bit of trouble. I wasn't smart enough. But I'm Pedro Gonzalez. We work out of Paducah, Kentucky, and the surrounding area down here. I'm actually, I think you guys know Carrie Paramore and Glenn Paramore. We're going to start partnering with them and actually try to tackle some of these foreclosure auction properties. I've done a few live and flips and flipped a few just empty lot properties. Got 1 insurance rental, and I'm just trying to learn. This foreclosure process can be a little complicated, so we're trying to get that whole system down.
Yes, and our topic will be specific to Oregon, but I think that a lot of it will translate to other states. And I think you might be our most distant attendee. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, no, thank you guys.
All right, Cherie, welcome.
Okay, here I am. Hello, I'm from Bend, and I've been investing in real estate for a couple of years out in the Midwest. I have 7 doors, and I'm looking forward to hearing about the auction process because I think that will help with my portfolio for slow flipping, buy it really low, and be able to turn around and offer owner financing for a nice profit.
Yes, and Cherie is a former guest speaker. A lot of people in this room are former guest speakers. So if you're interested in learning about the slow flip process, just hit me up. I can send you the recording of that video as well. So thanks, everyone. Did I miss anybody online? Eliza. Oh, Elisa. Eliza?
Elisa, hey. Yeah, I looked into buying at auction before, and it's a little complicated. So I'm really interested to learn about how it's done.
And where are you located?
I'm in Redmond.
Wonderful. Thank you. And thanks for catching who I missed, Dave. Perfect. All right, we'll go around the room here. We'll start with Brooke.
Hello, everyone. I'm Brooke Hisseltine. I am an investor living here in Bend. I have single family and multifamily homes, and I also own a property management company called Pioneer. And we service Bend and Deschutes County as well as Lane and Douglas County.
Yeah.
I'm Brady Webster, investor in some long-term rentals here locally. Recently purchased our primary from Suzanne and Sarah about a year ago. A long-term live-in flip with some forced equity. And yeah, just looking to learn more.
Barbara Wise. I'm with Coldwell Banker Mayfield Realty, but I'm also a real estate investor, wholesale, fix and flips.
I'm also a realtor, but investor, Peggy Kimball with John L. Scott, a realtor for 18 years. And I figure it's time for me to start jumping into the other areas.
Yeah.
So we're doing that. Barb and I are doing a PML for Honolulu. We will have to go and investigate over there.
Yeah, that's true.
So,
that's like Cherie as well. She has a license. She's on referral status only and focusing on building up her retirement through investments as well.
yeah.
Oh, are we going that way?
Yeah.
Sorry. Okay.
I'm John Tarantino and been in Bend for about 8 years, and I have some experience in property management and in investing, but still very much aspiring to get into more different things. And so I'm attending here just to find out, learn and meet people and figure out what direction I want to go into. So I'm really thankful for you putting this on, and thanks, Jonathan, for what you're going to talk about today. So I'm really interested about.
My name's Emma and I'm brand new to real estate investing. My husband's a contractor and we done the slow fix up our own houses type thing. And then he fixed up everybody else's houses. So it's time to actually do something a little more with the contractor skills. So I'm new to it. Investing networking group and learned all different types of, and I feel like I learned almost everything, almost so much that you have to back up and say, okay, what am I actually going to do now? So I feel like I got a little bit of everything in my head. Met Barb and Peggy in that group as well. So I'm excited to work with them.
Is that Rain?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. We got a few Rain people in. Yeah. All right.
Chris King. I have a engineering consulting business that I run, and then I'm building a mobile home park on the coast. I'm a partner in, and looking to buy other mobile home parks in the area.
There's one for sale.
I'm Corey Hansen. I'm an agent here at Realty One. Unfortunately, I didn't get to do the mentorship with Sarah and Suzanne. I wish I had, but I was a little further along in my career, so I'm lucky enough to be here with them and kind of learn from them as well. I have 3 rentals in the Midwest, 1 here, and then a primary here.
I'm Caitlin Dunley. I have a short-term rental property company called Soul Path Properties, and I'm an aspiring investor. I just acquired 2 doors back east where I'm from, and I'm just learning as much as I can to figure out my next moves.
Hi, everyone. I'm Dave Budnick. My wife and I have been real estate investors for 20 plus years, mostly single family rentals, and now we're all in duplexes scattered around the country. We also own a mobile home park in Mississippi in case we've grown that one up quite a bit over the last 4 years. I think we were grossing $2,000 a month in rent, and now we're at 12. It's a small park.
Huge.
Yeah, did some work to it, but it's good. And we are on a big project to build assisted living. We're building 2 memory care houses in Redmond. We just got our land locked up and we got approvals from the city. So now we're working on state approvals of our plans and should be breaking ground, well, hopefully, but before the end of the year.
That's
So
great.
nice.
Filling a need. I'm Suzanne, an investor as well as a private money lender. So I'll be talking to you all in June about private money lending, what I've learned and how I'm helping other people learn how to do it. But that is
Started my career in 2008 in LA, buying at the foreclosure auctions, and I bought a couple hundred homes that way and another couple hundred. So I've done about 400 flips in LA over a 10-year period. I also own 319 units in the Midwest over 5 complexes. I'm buying 12 units here in town as well that I'll be managing myself. And I've also helped a couple other people manage some properties here in town as well. Yeah, and I think one of my big strengths has just been like having a good eye for construction and seeing how to take advantage or get the most use out of any property that I'm working on. Yeah, a little bit about me.
And you moved here when?
3 years ago.
3 years ago. Okay.
Yeah.
What brought you to the area?
Just I have 2 young kids, different life for them, mainly. Yeah, and I like the outdoors. All right. So what is an auction? I'm primarily going to be talking about foreclosure auctions. And basically what happens is person obviously falls behind on their payments. They get a notice of default. Then they get a notice of sale, and it goes to the courthouse steps where you need to have cashier's checks, cash money to actually bid on the properties. I'm also going to talk about there's like auction.com and a few other websites where you can actually bid on houses online, and I've bought a few that way as well. And then also the sheriff does confiscate properties that they do auction off as well. I've never done that, but there's the Deschutes County Sheriff does auction some properties off. There's like a handful, it's not a whole lot, but yeah. It actually doesn't happen on site like that. It's on the courthouse steps, but I have gone to NLA, this probate auctions. So when someone dies, they'll actually auction it off this way in LA County. They don't do that here as far as I know. I've looked into it, maybe other counties of Oregon, but not in Deschutes County.
I've been to a couple back in Tennessee that are like that.
Yeah.
Where they'll auction the house and you have to meet there.
Yeah, I've been at some of those auctions, and it's usually it gets bid up a lot more because I think it gets a lot more emotional in that instance. Yeah. So obviously there's a lot of risk involved with buying the auctions. Number one, get title insurance, and you got to do your own title work. And the way we used to do it is just get like basically a prelim and make sure that we have the first going. You're gonna have to pay back property taxes, so you have to check into that. If there's any federal tax liens, they also have a 100-day stay, which means is they could actually still take the property back. They'll pay you back for whatever you're paying, and I think plus some interest. But if there's federal tax liens, you might not want to do anything on the property for at least 120 days to make sure they don't take it back and you don't invest money into it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Has that ever happened to you?
No.
Okay.
Yeah. I brought properties that got rescinded and they took it back, and then they just give you your money back, but I have right away. Yeah.
Interesting.
And then obviously the big risk is buying a second mortgage. So you got to just make sure that's a first mortgage. And I unfortunately made that mistake once. And yeah, we lost some money on that deal. So that's definitely the risk there.
Can you explain that a little bit more just for people that might not be familiar?
Yeah, especially during 08 time, there was a lot of people are getting second loans. So they're not putting any money down on these properties. And let's say let's say they bought it for 300 or 300,000 and the first was 250 and then they had a second for 50,000. Sometimes the second will go to sale first and you could buy the second and you still owe on the first, and let's say it's only worth 200 grand. And so you bought the 50,000, then you'll owe another $50,000 to pay off that first. And so you could be underwater. Yeah, so that's the risk. It's a less risk now just because of where values have gone, but definitely before it was a problem. And yeah, I've lost 6 figures on a deal because of that.
How would you know if you're buying a second mortgage?
You would check on the prelim. Property Radar also has information. You can also look at the Deschutes County records and just pull all the documents and you can see the chain of title.
Okay.
Yeah.
How much time do you have between finding out the address and bidding on it to do this kind of research?
You usually, like, you'll see the list that I have of the auctions coming up. Some of them you'll know months before, but you don't want to do the research too far ahead because they could either postpone, they could pay what they owe and it gets reinstated, or they like go into bankruptcy and that delays things. So you don't want to do it too soon ahead of time, but you could do it a couple of weeks before. Yeah.
And do all those things need to be disclosed? If there's a second or whatever, when you do the research, can they withhold any information?
That's why I would never buy a second.
Yeah.
If it's a second, just stay away. Yeah. That's where there's a risk that sometimes it's not 100% clear. And if you're not 100% clear, I just wouldn't bid on it.
Right.
Yeah.
And basically there's no realtor or
Oh, there's
anything,
no,
any of this. Like you have to do all the research on your
yeah,
own.
you pay for it. They send you a deed in the mail. You go record it.
And that's usually through the bank that's foreclosing on them?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or a lender, or it could be a hard money lender. I bought properties that flipper was in the middle of the project and I bought it, finished and sold it. Yeah.
So you wouldn't know about any foundation issues or mold or anything like that. It's just
No. Yeah, that's what I was gonna talk about next.
Here, we'll move to that.
I'm wondering,
Yeah, what's that?
excuse me, I'm wondering, have you ever done a title search? You're interested in one that you think would work. Do you do your title search?
Yeah. Yeah, I get a prelim, or like at the time when we were buying a couple of homes a week, we would have an Excel thing that we sent to our title company and the title officer would send us all the information. But I would confirm it in different places just in case, because they can make mistakes too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And just to be clear, a prelim is, for those that don't know all the lingo, it's a preliminary title report. So it's something, if you have a relationship with a title agent, then you can, like Jonathan, send them a spreadsheet or a list of addresses. And if you're closing a lot of deals with them, they'll probably do it for you.
Yeah, or I've talked to some title companies in town and they said they would charge $200 to $300 and then give it back to you if you sell it back with them. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's really your risk. This one's fun.
Yeah, so yeah, like you were saying, you don't know the condition. You could go drive the property and see if there's like cracks in the foundation, or another big thing is like sewer. Maybe there's a lot of trees and the driveway's buckled, so maybe there could be issues with the sewer. Sometimes they're occupied either with the person that owns it or a tenant. It's easier if the person that owns it is still in the property, because then they only have 10 days once you buy it to move. And then at that point, you could process with an eviction if they don't move. It gets a little more complicated with tenants. Obviously, it's more ideal if the property is vacant. And if the property is vacant, you could usually at least look in some windows and get like a decent idea. And the other thing too is maybe it was listed before, and you could look at old pictures and have a decent idea of what the condition of it is inside.
Yeah, so you're not going through with an inspector. You're probably not going through at all. You're essentially buying it relatively sight unseen.
Sight
except for
unseen, yeah.
exterior if you're lucky.
Yeah, so you have to like budget a certain amount and give yourself a good budget to make up, because there's going to be surprises, especially in that instance.
And add another 20.
Yeah.
20%.
Yeah, yeah. You
Anyway.
leave a lot of wiggle room.
Yeah.
Any questions on the risks?
I have a question on second mortgage. So if you buy it first, it's the second just.
It gets wiped.
Okay.
Yeah. You don't have to pay that second
What I
mortgage.
thought, I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
Was thinking.
Most other like liens get wiped other than like property taxes.
As long as you're buying first position.
Yeah.
All the liens.
That's why when we're private money lenders, we want to be in first position.
Yeah. So this is like my checklist that I've created over 10 years of being on properties and mistakes I've made. So we don't make the ones I did.
Are you gonna be sharing the slides at all, or?
I think.
I could share some of them, like
Okay.
some of the content. Yeah.
Okay. So first of all, the website that I like that I use for this kind of thing is propertyradar.com. And you can pull all the foreclosure information, and it gives you everything that's recorded against the property. So you can do your own title work there, and all the information, who currently owns it, who the lender is, what information about the property as well. And then from there, I'll organize the list based on some kind of importance of what my priority of property is to go after. Usually when I was going to the auctions, we weren't visiting the property till the day of, just because I was saying, but we were going after so many properties that we didn't want to waste time on properties that were just going to postpone. So we're going day of. You might want to go a little sooner than that, I'm sure. And so they would upload basically how we had it at the time when we were doing a bunch of properties. I had 2 people going to all the properties to view them before we bid on them. I had 2 separate people at the different auction sites. In the office, I had someone there valuing everything, and I was putting it all together and giving out bids to the different bidders at the properties that had cashier's checks in their pocket ready to bid on these properties. To give you a little image of what that's like. And then from there, on the next part of my checklist is what I just talked about, doing values, what my budget is to fix it. And that would be through the observer pictures. And if I could find any old pictures or old listings, sometimes they're actually actively listed potentially. So potentially you can get inside the property, you could schedule an appointment with the agent just as a buyer. I mean, you're a buyer, potentially a buyer. And if it doesn't go to auction, potentially you could buy it on the market in that case as well. And yeah, so from there, you get the value, and you can work with Suzanne here to potentially help you with values. And if you were to resell it, hopefully you work with them as well.
Thanks.
And then from there, you create your best bid. And I would also check with the city of Bend and the county and see if you could pull any permits. Maybe there's been some recent permits for work that's been done on property, and that might give you a decent idea of what the condition of it. I already talked about Property Radar.
And there will be a link, like if you're not familiar with Property Radar, Jonathan has an affiliate link to share. So
Yeah. And then, so you can go to dial too and just verify information about the property. You could also, another thing to do is if it has a separate mailing address on dial, it might mean that there's a tenant on the property that's not the actual owner that lives there. It might be a rental. Like I said, look at the old MLS and then active listings. If there's active listings, contact the agent and you can get an idea of maybe if they have any offers on the property, who's living there, if it's vacant. Yeah.
Johnson, you mentioned dial.
Yeah.
Is everybody familiar with what dial is?
Yeah.
Some people might not know. It's just a county website that covers all the real estate tax lots. You can look up any property and see all the tax information.
Yeah. Yep.
The Deschutes County Information System.
Yep.
It's real fun.
So yeah, second, stay away. Don't even mess with it. Technically, you could buy a second, and if the first is cheap enough, you could still make it all work. But the problem with that is you don't know how far behind the first is, how many fees or things are owed there that, yeah, you might be thinking the first is only 100K, but there could be another 50K there that you don't even know about that would not be recorded. Yeah, make sure it's clean title. I like checking the Zillow and Redfin estimates. I would take that as a grain of salt. Just it gives me, is it in line with what I'm thinking it's worth? Yeah. Condo, if it's a condo, that I may stay away from a condo buying it at auction just because you don't know how much they could be back behind on their HOA fees. And I bought a condo one time and there was some issues with the property. There was like roof repairs that needed to be done on the building and other additional costs that we weren't aware of till we got into it. But luckily we got a pretty good deal on it, so it worked out there. And then check the property on Google Maps. Obviously you want to go drive it, but on Google Maps you can get the overview, and you could I don't know if you know this, on Google Maps you could actually go backwards in time. So you can see different views at different years, and you can see if it's actually changed or the area has changed a bit, and it gives you a little more information that way.
You can see if the roof is a different color, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, they
Have a new roof.
Yep, yeah, or maybe they have a bunch of junk in the backyard and they're probably hoarders and it's probably in bad shape. Yeah.
And then are those your calculations, like the value, the fixed price, and then?
Yeah, I'll go through that when I go through the example deal. I have like a breakdown, how to break it down. So yeah, title, make sure the first is going in, check if any back taxes, because you'll have to pay the property back taxes. If there's a tax lien, federal tax lien, we talked about that, 120-day stay. And then lis pendens basically means that there's a lawsuit against the property, and I would just stay away from that because it could tie you up for a year in that property to get the lawsuit taken off, and then it's a cloud on title, and it will cause it's a cloud with that, in my opinion.
Would that show up on your preliminary title report?
It would. Yeah, and actually on property radar will show
nice.
lis pendens as well. Yeah.
I have a question about list pendants, if you guys don't mind me asking. Do you guys know, does property radar show when the list pendants is when they actually submit that lawsuit, the case number for that?
It shows when it was recorded against the property. I'm not sure if it shows a case number, but you can go to the records and put the owner's information and the property address and see what pops up.
Okay. I've been trying to go towards that to try to get some more like a seller finance deal in some of the lawsuits and the liens. If the numbers look right, they would be a good seller finance or sub two, maybe get them out of their situation.
Yeah, that's a good strategy.
Yeah, I've had situations where I paid off what the owner owed and then ended up buying it from them. So there's like a lot of creative ways you could do that.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Good.
Next.
Okay. Yeah. Who's on your team?
Yeah, so obviously the most important people when it comes to bidding at auctions is having a good title person that can all the proper information. And I'm sure a title officer could also walk you through a prelim so you understand what you're getting yourself into. Because if you buy something, you buy a second, they can't come and save you. Yeah. And then obviously a good agent, like Suzanne here, that could help you run comps. And you could always do your own comps on Redfin or whatever, but it's good to have a professional that knows the pockets, knows the different areas, so you could really like pinpoint that price. Because if you're $50,000 off, that could be your profit. So, yeah.
Sheree, do you have a question?
Yes. Trying to figure this out. I don't know if it was already asked or what, but is there a rescission period for the seller? Is that something different than, say, a tax sale when it's an auction? Is there a period where the seller, the previous owner or whatever, can
They
pay
don't.
taxes off or whatever and get it back?
So not in this particular case, as far as I know, but obviously you always do your own research.
So in Oregon, we have judicial.
It might be the sheriff's. I don't have experience with that.
Yeah, Sheree, I think there is a distinction in Oregon where there's judicial and non-judicial foreclosures, and one of them, the borrower, has rights of redemption. So
yeah,
I can't remember which is which. Judicial, they have rights of redemption?
Yeah.
Okay.
And you can buy those rights from them.
Yes, yes, you can.
Okay.
I guess what we're mainly talking about here is non-judicial.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
In Kentucky, there's two different rules between city and county. City, you buy the tax lien and they have 6 months, I think, or a year to buy that lien back, or else you can foreclose on them. So you technically just own the lien instead of the property. But in the county foreclosure, the county hires an agent to do the appraisal, and if it buys for 2/3 of that price or higher, there's no redemption. But if it bids lower and is bought lower than that redemption price, the owner has 6 months to buy it back for what you paid and any fees added on top of that. But every state's different that I've seen.
The only time it's been rescinded in my experience was the bank made a mistake and they took it back, but it happened within a couple of days, so it wasn't a huge deal. Yeah, they gave us our money back right away.
Got it.
Yeah.
Good info. And then how many people did you have on your team when you were doing this kind of volume?
I had 2 observers, 2 bidders, someone else, so it's 5. And at least 5 people just for this process, 6 including myself. But we were buying 2 properties a month at that time. So it was, and looking at probably 10 properties a day. Probably. Yeah, but there's not as many auctions these days. And this is a much smaller county than LA County.
Yes. Is it something you think someone could potentially do solo?
Yeah. Yeah. If you have the cash to do it, yeah, you can do it.
Okay.
So this is just an example of the property profile you would get on Property Radar, and you could see there's a Liz pendants there. You could see the notice of sale here. You could see when it's going to auction, what the published bid is, where it's going to auction, what time, what loan is going to sale, the notice that was given for that sale, and then when it last sold, all the information, who owns it, their mailing address, all that. Like there's a ton of information in there, and you could click into all that stuff as well. And then this is, so what, basically a trustee that represents the lender is the one that takes it to sale. And sometimes they'll have their own website where you can pull sometimes more updated information, updated on Property Radar. But you could also go to the trustee's website and potentially pull some more updated information. And each trustee has their own website. This is one of the bigger ones. And what is crazy is their website hasn't changed in over a decade. It's been exactly the same. It's like super old school. Yeah.
So that's what you would get if you plugged an address into Property Radar. You would get that one pager.
Yeah, and you have a subscription, and then also you have to pay for, there's an additional fee for the county to be able to get the auction information. Yeah.
So you pay that per property.
You pay that No, it's like a monthly.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you need to pick your county that you're targeting.
Yes, you
Okay.
do. Yeah. So it's
You-
not like super cheap, but it's in the grand scheme of buying a property like that, it's worth spending the money. Yeah.
So are you select a county or multiple counties in there and then you pay by county?
By county, I'm sure they can give you a better deal if you're doing multiple counties. Yeah, and I went to one of the auctions here in downtown. It was a little house in Lapine, and I chatted it up with the guys there, and a lot of them bid in a bunch of the counties here in Oregon. They just travel around and buy properties all over the state. And then this is my example deal. So you could see here that they bought it for $451,000 in October 9th of last year, and then they sold it earlier this year for $590,000. So I estimated they put $40,000. It looks like it was vacant because they sold it in 102 days. And based on like old listing pictures I saw, that's what I guesstimated, just because it didn't look like they had done much. I put some financing costs because as you can see here, they actually took a hard money loan out the day after for $431,000. So like 90% of the purchase basically. So I put some financing costs that obviously can fluctuate. And then I put a 7% sales, that's to pay commissions, closing costs, etc. And after you pay for everything, financing and everything, your profit margin there was about $43,000 in 102 days, which I think is pretty good. And it'll be better than that if you're paying cash, but if you're getting a loan, that's where it would be. And that felt like a pretty good sample deal that I found that happened recently here in Bend.
Yeah.
And then if you go to the next slide, you see the pictures of the property. The pictures, they didn't do a whole lot. I think they did some floors, lighting, and maybe put new appliances. That's about it. And painted it.
Yeah, and it's virtually staged, it looks like.
Yeah, and they did it 102 days during the holidays, so it's definitely vacant. Otherwise, you're not doing it in 90, 100 days. If it's occupied and you have to go through eviction, it's probably at least double that time. And then this is the list of the upcoming auctions in Deschutes County. And for example, you have this one in Sisters going to sale tomorrow and has an opening bid of 1.4 million, which I think is a crazy price for that. So most likely, so what happens in that instance, then they'll go back to the bank and the bank will list it with the agent and sell it at whatever price. And if the loan, I don't know what the loan amount is there. It might be around 1.4 million. The bank will probably have to take a loss to get that property sold. Yeah.
So the published bid is where it starts?
The published bid, I think, might be what they owe.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm not sure how they get that number, but the opening bid is what they're going to be willing to sell it for. So maybe that's what they owe. And depending on what they're behind, fees, etc., that's where they get to that number. So,
That's a good list.
yeah, that's what 30 properties there.
Does that
Approximately.
have the auction date?
Yeah, it does. Sale date.
Oh, sale date.
Yeah.
Okay, so you wouldn't
Trustee
get
sale date.
anything, you wouldn't even start researching anything past April at this
I
point.
wouldn't start researching anything past June.
Oh, okay.
Oh, this is gonna waste your time. Yeah.
What percentage of this list, just generally speaking, is actually gonna make it better?
Probably half. Yeah. It's not, you're probably one sells a month, one or two in the county. Is what it comes down to. It's not a lot. Yeah. So you could do this in other counties. Have more opportunity, especially if you have properties in other counties in Oregon. Yeah.
How long before the sale date, they update the opening bid?
Usually it's day of.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Day of. Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes the day before, but it's right before. Yeah.
And to make a sale, to purchase, you have to have all the cash.
You have to have all the cash.
Yeah.
Yeah. And usually how you do it is you'll take increments of, you'll make your own, you do it to your own name and then you sign it over to them, but you do increments of 10, 50, $100,000 checks so that you give the closest amount to what you paid, so you're not waiting for some huge refund. Yeah.
And can I ask, what would the factors be that only one a month is going to be going to auction? Why wouldn't, if they're on that list, why would they not be going? Would it be wholesalers? Would it be they are able to turn it around? What would
Yeah, they sell it, they pay off what they owe, they go into bankruptcy, and that delays stuff a lot. There's all kinds of things. Yeah, they pass. Yeah.
You may have said this, but where do you get this list?
Property Radar. Yeah.
Which is a paid subscription.
It's paid. And it's worth it. And and the other good thing about what I like about Property Radar is like they have all the court documents, so you could see if like people deceased, divorced, like all this stuff, and you could narrow down other opportunities, not just auction properties on there. Yeah.
So does that go all through the US or is it all?
Yeah, it's all through US.
Yeah, so you could use this to potentially send out mailers if you see someone's in distress, or not that you want to prey on that, but if when you see someone's having a divorce or something like that,
yeah,
do a mailer and send, are you interested in selling or whatever?
Yeah. Or you could see if they have a lot of equity in their property, they've owned it for a long time, etc. Yeah.
I know a lot of investors use PropStream for running lists like that. Do you use Property Radar in conjunction with another tool, or is this the only tool that only paid subscription you use?
It's the only one that I've been using, but I also use like CoStar because I'm going after apartments myself, but that's what you could do on here as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a handful of other tools. It's just the one that I happen to use.
Yeah.
It's the best one for the foreclosure information for sure.
Got it.
Hands down.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sherry has a question.
Oh, no, I think, Sherry, you don't have any more questions, do you?
Sorry. Actually, I do. The chat, where you put those links of those different places that you use?
Yeah.
Like Radar.
Yeah, I believe it's at the end.
Thank you.
Cool. Okay. All right. So here's an example.
Oh yeah, this is an example of a online auction. This is a REO. So this actually probably went to auction, didn't sell, went to the bank, and then the bank is putting it online to sell. And the cool thing about these sales is usually you do have a regular escrow period, you do get title insurance, and you potentially can get financing because you have a little bit more time.
Can you get in
Yeah.
on?
Usually not as well. Yeah, sometimes you can. And this usually it's listed by an agent that maybe has contact with the occupants, maybe doesn't.
This
Yeah.
property I've been into and actually has an ADU with it.
Oh yeah.
In the back, there's
Cool.
two separate units in here.
Yeah. So it went to, I don't know if it sold. I posted this a while ago. Yeah.
It's going back up.
It's going back up. Okay. Yeah. And then sometimes they don't get the bid that they need. So they keep trying to sell it till eventually it sells at some point. Or I've had situations where it sold to someone else. I was like the second bidder and they called me like, do you want it at this price? I'm like, yeah, I'll buy it at that price. Sure. Yeah. So just being involved in it, even if you're not the winner, potentially you can create an opportunity. Different sites, dial, Property Radar, and then also this website is where you can pull all the documents that are recorded against the property. So you could pull the different deeds, you could pull whatever liens or whatever, and then obviously auction.com, the other websites like auction.com that do online sales, and then that's just one of the trustees' websites as well. And there's a handful of other ones. A lot of them, sometimes the trustee could just be an attorney's office that you can call and try to get more information about the sale. Sometimes they're reluctant to, but you could press them a little bit and get information, what the status is, if there's an opening bid, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, take pictures. I've seen a few of you, so you too. For what you need. Good. All right.
And then, yeah, that's just my information. And if you have any other questions, feel free to contact me. Or if you get into a deal or something, you're like scrambling or something, I'm happy to like, make sure you're not making a big mistake or something. Yeah.
Yeah. What other questions do you have?
You're gonna remember that.
Yeah. I'd rather help you and then you get into something that you regret. Yeah. Yeah.
I have a quick question. Just generally speaking, a lot of people are like, don't buy from auctions. Why do you choose that as your primary method of real estate investing?
I'm not
Okay.
actually doing it that much these days
Okay.
just because there isn't a lot of opportunity and I've just been doing other more longer term, bigger properties lately. But I like it just because there's a lot less competition. As you said, there's a lot less people doing it. It is more risky, but if you do all this homework and you mitigate a lot of that risk and you can create opportunities that you wouldn't get on the open market. Yeah. It's challenging, but if you could figure it out and make it work, you could potentially do really well. Yeah. And I think the key to it is like speed with the flips, because the key to it is like with that $500,000 that you're putting into it, can you use it 2 to 3 times a year? And then that's when you really make a really good return on your money.
Who's ready to go out and buy a house at auction? 1.4 million?
Can I borrow that?
A little bit of our budget.
And sometimes units do go to sale. Like I've bought duplexes, triplexes, stuff like that from the auctions. Yeah.
Those are really tired landlords.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I do have a question about auction.com. I've actually been in contact with lots of different people that are tied in with auction.com.
Mm-hmm.
One of the agents I was actually just talking to this morning, he was sharing that he's one of the agents that is carrying a couple of the auction homes.
Okay.
And he was sharing that a lot of times the debt that is still on the home, that even though the opening bid is so much less than what their reserve is, that most of the time that the bids are being bidded, that they're not even accepting them because it doesn't even get close to the reserve. Have you ever found to where whatever bid price they were asking you to begin, that you were able to actually purchase it at that? Or did you have to go quite a bit higher? Because this agent told me you're going to have to almost double what they're asking the bid to come in at.
Yeah, I've had both instances where I ended up being the winning bidder and they're like, yeah, it just didn't hit the reserve.
Yeah.
Or I've had instances I bought a handful of properties that way for sure. But it's hit or miss, I would say.
So it's not like a hard and fast rule with the banks, as in all this debt has got to be taken care of before we even allow this house to.
At some point, they need to get it off their books. And at some point, they're going to keep putting it up there until finally they just come to some realization that this is what it's worth and we just got to move
So
it.
just keep showing up and keep bidding that opening bid and hope.
Yeah, I've seen some properties coming back and forth on the website like for over a year. So it's not unusual for that to happen too. Yeah.
Carrying costs.
Yeah.
Bank wasted.
They don't want to be owners.
Yeah.
They just need to move it.
No, I get it. If they hold it for a year before they finally get it out the door, it's like, God, it's.
So I'm just wondering, this might sound like a naive question because I'm learning about HELOCs right now. And so if you get a HELOC on your house and say you have 150,000 available and it's good for 10 years, right? So they say, so you go out and buy something at auction, you pay it back within 6 months. Can you just go out and get another HELOC on your house, or is there a limit to that? I'm not.
What do you mean?
Can you pay it back, and now can you go and do that again?
So it's a line of credit.
Yeah.
As long as you
Yeah.
just keep
Yeah.
going.
As long as you pay it back, you can just keep going.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't. I thought if you just used it once, then that was it. So.
No.
Pay it back.
Yeah. Right. That's a great tool.
Absolutely. Yes. What other questions? Anyone else online have questions for Jonathan?
I had a question. I have some information as well that I can share because I've been tracking the foreclosures for a while here in Kentucky. But Jonathan, have you ever seen an instance on Property Radar where there is a missing lien that is on that property?
Yes.
Okay.
That's why you have to get your own title information and look at the county records too.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Because like here in Paducah,
Perfect data. Yeah.
here in Paducah, as long as the lien is listed on the list when they publish it, doesn't matter what the property sells for, everything is wiped away once the sale happens. So let's say if there's $20,000 worth of liens and the property sells for $5,000, which does happen, the first place pays off the lien, and then any money that's left pays the other ones. But if they obviously didn't sell for 20,000, then they're out of luck on that person that did the lawsuit.
That's usually the case of other than property taxes. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. On the bids, somebody asked about the published bids. In Kentucky, I have not seen. There was one house that I saw that they posted a published bid, but every other time it's been just an opening. Like whoever's there, they just ask for somebody to bid on it, and they'll start wherever. The deposit, how they do these is like in Paducah. You can, if you buy a house, you can put 10% down, but you have to provide proof of funds, and they give you 30 days to be able to close on it. So you can do some type of financing for those. If you don't have the cash, you just buy it outright.
Have your wad of cashiers.
Every county is a little different.
Yeah. And like the liens on the list, I think I'm going to repeat that again, but they post it when they get published, they post the liens on the list. So if anything is missing and they didn't post it on there, you have to pay that off. So right now I'm trying to figure out how to fully be able to look up the lien really good. That way I don't get caught sideways.
You gotta work with a title company. Yeah. A good title company that's gonna give you good information.
Oh yeah.
Beautiful.
Thank you, Pedro. James, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, I was curious if you've had any experience with the auctions on LoopNet.
I've never bid on LoopNet. Like for apartment buildings, you're saying?
Yeah, it would be commercial properties. Multifamilies on there.
I have looked at those, but my concern with that is, especially if it's multiple units, you don't know anything about the tenants, what they're paying, what their history is. Like you add a whole level of risk that I'm willing to take personally. It's something you could look into for sure. Or potentially, I've seen situations where properties like that are on auction, but there's also an agent, and maybe you can get inside and maybe get a rent roll and get some more information. But if you don't have any of that information, then you don't know what you're buying, like at all.
Okay, thanks.
Someone else have a
I
question?
do. I've got a question. Jonathan, you had said everything gets wiped clean other than that second mortgage and the taxes do not, correct?
So you have to still pay the
so
property
even though
taxes.
you purchase the auctioned property, you have to pay the back taxes. Is that correct? Okay.
Yeah, and it could add up for sure. Yeah.
How about an IRS lien or?
You don't need to pay that off, but like I said in the presentation, there's a 120-day stay where the IRS can come and take the property, but they'll give you your money back plus some kind of interest. Yeah, but if there's federal taxing, you don't want to do anything with the property for 120 days. You're not investing money because you wouldn't get money back that you invest into the property. Yeah, so if you put $50,000 into the property, you wouldn't get that back if they took the property. That's a really rare instance that can never happen. And I would Google more about that, and you can get like way more details on that.
Would Property Radar note that there's a federal tax lien on it? Would that come on the title report?
It'd be on the title report. I'm not sure if it shows that on Property Radar.
Is that sometimes like Medicare liens? And someone, no.
Just like they owe taxes to the
Okay, it's just
IRS,
taxes.
and that's
Okay.
their property, and they put a lien against the property.
Got it. Other questions? You guys were right on time. This is amazing. But we can go over it.
Yeah, and I can hang out for a little bit too.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm so glad we had such an engaged audience
Yeah,
and
for having
lots
me.
of great questions. And yes, Jonathan is an expert. He knows his stuff. And I would say if you have specific questions for Jonathan, reach out. But please don't just call him and take him out to coffee and pick his brain for 4 hours. I'm just saying that for myself. Jonathan did not ask me to do that, but a few of us get our brains picked a lot. Yeah, just want to thank you all for joining. joining us. And
That's
thanks
great.
everyone
Thanks.
online. We'll post the recording on our Facebook page and our YouTube page, so you'll be able to check it out later.
Nice.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
All right.
Hopefully that was useful.
Yeah.
Yeah.